There have been quite a number of news stories dominating the headlines in recent days, from the James Comey indictment to the troops marching into Chicago, to the threat of troops going to Portland, to the shooting at the LDS Church, which Trump said appeared to be another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America, although the man accused of doing the shooting was once a Trump supporter, here pictured wearing a Trump 2020 shirt. And I did find it odd that the pickup truck he used to ram the church had two giant American flags in the bed. Now, of course, his past support for Trump and his having two American flags in the back of his pickup truck will not be things that the pro-Trump media will focus on. However, one item that has completely flown under the radar is Trump signing a national security directive that describes radical left violence in terms that are so broad that the majority of Americans probably fall under its definitions. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Last week, Trump signed a presidential memorandum entitled Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence. This is being referred to as NSPM 7. Now, this is not an executive order, but rather a national security directive. The difference being that an executive order relates to the course of day-to-day federal government operations. Executive orders are public. By contrast, national security directives are usually secret, as they can often involve foreign policy, intelligence, defense, and every level of law enforcement. However, this particular national security memorandum was made public, and that's because it involves every aspect of government, focusing in on what's referred to as leftist political violence. This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, said Stephen Miller in reference to this memorandum. In this memorandum, Trump directs the Justice Department, the FBI, and other national security agencies to fight his own version of political violence in America. Now, the memorandum is rather lengthy, so I'm not going to read it in full, but I'll put a link down below in case you'd like to do so yourself. But here are a couple of excerpts that you might find as stunning as I did. The United States requires a national strategy to investigate and disrupt networks, entities, and organizations that foment political violence so that law enforcement can intervene in criminal conspiracies before they result in violent political acts. This is basically what's called pre-crime, which was famously outlined in the movie Minority Report, and it was all about how law enforcement used various means to identify and apprehend individuals before they committed the crime, supposedly preventing the crime from ever happening. But in the case of NSPM 7, pre-crime is being defined in ways that could potentially ensnare tens of millions of Americans. For example, here are some of the indicators according to this memorandum: anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on religion, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality. While on the surface it might seem like a good idea to focus in on some of these things, we have to remember who is defining these indicators. What is anti-Americanism? Does it mean to simply speak up against the government? What is extremism on migration? Does it mean that we cannot speak out about how the government is treating these people? What does it mean to be hostile toward traditional American views on religion? What exactly is hostility? Is that the way we think? What we post on social media? And what definition of Christianity are we using? Is it the Christianity that worships America and that idolizes Donald Trump, that has the prosperity gospel at its heart with its undercurrents of the Seven Mountains Mandate nonsense? Is that what Christianity is being defined as? Those are important questions because while the Trump administration frames itself as battling anti-Americanism and anti-Christianity and various forms of extremism and hostility, they themselves are extremists. They themselves are hostile to what America used to represent. It's also important to remember that Donald Trump and those around him who are responsible for this memorandum are into Christian nationalism with undercurrents of white nationalism. What they are attempting to do is to push America further and further right, where their version of Christianity is front and center, where their version of America is what we must all swear allegiance to, and where the man who defends their version of America and their version of Christianity should not be questioned on anything that he says or does. So what's going on now is that the Trump administration is classifying almost all violence as coming from the left, and they are describing the origins of this violence in terms that are so broad that half of this country would probably fall under its definition of a domestic terrorist. And the intention behind this is to put a fake Christianity at the center of the U.S. government, with a man heading up that government who views himself as a king. And all of this is perfectly in line with what the Bible teaches us about the final beast kingdom and how it will be headed up by the Antichrist, because that final beast kingdom has a counterfeit Christianity at its heart. And the man who oversees that beast kingdom is perceived as that knight in shining armor riding in to save the day, to bring us peace and security. But of course, what really happens is that this man will bring about destruction. But before all of that happens, I believe that over the next year or two, millions upon millions of Americans will be classified as domestic terrorists.